What's going on YouTube? And today I'm going to be starting a new series called How Good Was He? And within this series I'm going to be taking suggestions or just reminiscing on players throughout NFL history, reviewing their careers, determining whether they were underrated, overrated, or were just completely forgotten. And with that being said, let's get into the first episode.
We have some action and the Jet fans have woken up.
Eric Mancini probably stared at that board and said, "What, Revis?"
With the 14th pick in the 2007 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Darrelle Revis, cornerback.
A lot of corners have receiver-like ball skills. A lot of corners have elite athletic measurements. A lot of corners understand the game that allows them to know what offenses are going to throw at them. There are only a handful that are able to combine all three, and Darrelle Revis was certainly one of them. Revis' peak was as high as any players at any position of recent NFL history. He could erase the opposing team's number one receiver in one-on-one coverage without any safety help. A ultra-rare ability that gave Revis Island the schematic flexibility to develop exotic blitz packages that turned the 2009 and 10 Jets into the league's best defense. The Jets went to back-to-back AFC Championship games in Mark Sanchez's first two seasons, and Revis was the defensive fulcrum. When he first came into the league in 2007, he played for one of the most difficult defenses to play in. Revis Island's blitz-heavy defense that required corners to strap up long enough and man cover so his blitzes could get through and create disruption. They were able to consistently play with razor-thin margin for error because they had two studs at cornerback in Revis and Antonio Cromartie. Even the league's best wideouts for standing were put on Revis Island. For 3 different games in November 2010, Revis held Calvin, Andre, and Chad Johnson to a combined 3 catches for 31 yards on 9 targets. That incredible disruption is why he was named first team All-Pro 4 times, including each year from 2009 to 2011. Revis never posted high interception totals, but even that is a mark in his favor. Quarterbacks often avoided his side of the field altogether. At his peak, he may have been the most dominant Jet of all time. He also showed everyone how to break the bank. Before his rookie year, he held out for more money and got it. In 2010, he also held out for more money, but this time for an unheard of $16 million annually. And once again, the Jets gave it to him. And then Revis tore his ACL in Week 3 against the Dolphins in 2012. After the season, the Jets traded Revis to the Buccaneers, who gave him a 6-year, $96 million contract. The Bucs replaced head coach Greg Schiano the next offseason with the cover 2 oriented Lovely Smith. Revis spent 1 season in Tampa Bay back in 2013 where he started all 16 games and intercepted 2 passes. Sadly, most Bucs fans won't be able to look back on Revis in truly a positive light. He wasn't around for very long and his contract was what made most of the headlines and not his playing ability. In his lone season with Tampa Bay, Revis was still playing at a high level. The motivation may have not been there due to the lack of success the team was having, but the relationship never seemed to have a chance to begin with. Arguably the best corner of his generation, but his time with the Buccaneers won't be remembered fondly. The Buccaneers released him after they couldn't trade him. Revis then took his talents to New England and earned the Super Bowl ring. And one of the more underrated areas of Revis' game was his physicality as a tackler. He was known for being one of the best cover corners in the history of the game, but when it came to hit, he smacked some dudes. When Revis was with the Patriots, he was able to bait quarterbacks into making questionable throws before exploding with his recovery speed towards the ball. As Revis began to age, he wasn't the physically dominant player that he was at his peak, but the mental aspect of his game still allowed him to be an elite defender. He became a more conservative defender, saving his physical bursts for the perfect timing. After Revis signed a 1-year, $12 million deal with the Patriots, he made first team All-Pro and won Super Bowl 49 against Seattle. Once again a free agent, Revis returned to the Jets earning a $33 million payday and a chance to smooth over any hard feelings with gangrene after he just won a ring with New York's biggest rival. He made the Pro Bowl in 2015 with the Jets before his playability began to slip. The Jets overpaid to bring him home, which at the time they had to do. He responded with 5 interceptions, but still wasn't the same. Speedy wide receivers like DeAndre Hopkins made him look bad. After that, we all saw the fall. It was dramatic and it was steep. We all know how Revis' career fared after his time in New England. Unfortunately, things started going south in 2016, and the Jets ate $6 million to let Revis walk before the 2017 season. Revis signed with the Chiefs late in the season. His Chiefs tenure was the lone blimp on his otherwise stellar career. An extremely washed Revis went to Kansas City in 2017, and he seemed out of place. It probably would have been better if he was converted to safety like Charles Woodson did late in his career. But that Chiefs season will be forgotten. It won't hurt Revis' legacy as one of the best players we've seen this century. the forerunner for modern players trying to maximize their earnings, and one of the few defenders' dominance that could withstand the NFL's passing wave. In his 11 years, Revis signed contracts worth a total value of $291 million. His actual cash earnings total more than $124 million. He is the only defensive back to make more than $100 million. While Revis ended his career on a few sour notes, he will be remembered as a shutdown corner of his generation. His 29 interceptions don't tell the whole story, as quarterbacks found themselves often scared to throw his way. It didn't matter what receiver opposed him, there was no one in the NFL Revis couldn't erase in his prime. One of the top covermen in NFL history, he's a lock for the Hall of Fame and arguably the best cornerback of his generation. It's incredibly hard to be a dominant cornerback with the severe penalties that defensive backs face for minimum contact. That never slowed down Revis at his peak. He was elite in every area of the game that cornerbacks need to excel in, including the confidence to bet on himself and his abilities. From 2008 to 2011, Revis was the gold standard. Nobody that watched him play would claim that he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, but should he go in on the first try? A lot of players deserving of the Hall of Fame simply don't go in on the first ballot, but what about Darrelle Revis? It doesn't matter what angle you look at it from, Revis in 2009 was one of the best ever. It was far from his last great year, but it will be the one that everyone thinks of first thanks to his consistency and the names that he shut down. Revis finished 2009 with 6 interceptions, 1 pick six, 31 passes defended, and 54 tackles. He earned his second Pro Bowl nod that year and made his All-Pro first team debut. He also earned the highest single season grade of any cornerback in the Pro Football Focus era. Without Revis, it's hard to imagine the Jets going to the AFC Championship game in 2009 and then again in 2010. He never did reach the Super Bowl as a Jet, but there's no denying his days with gangrene were some of his best. His 111 passes defended with the Jets is a franchise record, while his 25 interceptions are good for the 3rd best mark in team history. And his 463 interception return yards place him at 4th on the Jets all-time list. He was so dominant in 2010 that he earned the trip to the Pro Bowl without intercepting a single pass. Quarterbacks never threw his direction. That's how good Darrelle Revis once was, and that's crazy. There's no questioning the dominance of Darrelle Revis. In his prime, he was the epitome of a shutdown corner. For the defenses of Eric Mangini and Rex Ryan, Revis eliminated the top receiver of the opponent. The question becomes whether or not a period of dominance that only lasted 4 years is good enough to make the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. The argument that could be made is that he should have to wait until his second ballot. People could say that he didn't dominate quite long enough. Terrell Davis is probably the strongest example of this issue. He also spent 4 years as the gold standard at his position from 1995 to 1998. During that time, we even saw him rush for 2,008 yards in 1998. His fall from grace was just as fast. Much of it due to injury, Davis wasn't elected to the Hall of Fame until 2017. Could the same type of fate come to Darrelle Revis? It certainly isn't out of the realm of possibility. Ultimately, I believe he does deserve to make it on the first ballot simply because of what he did over those 4 years is arguably something we will never see again. I hope you guys liked the video. I was inspired to make this because I got into a Twitter argument about a year ago, debating whether or not Revis dominated his era just as much as Deion did with his era. And then, I'm not going to get too much into that, but I will leave a link to the Twitter thread in the description so you guys can decide for yourselves. And other than that, I'll catch you on the next video.